Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to some of you. Welcome to the Hedgebrook Writer in Residence info session. My name is Amber Flame, and I am thrilled to be the program director here at Hedgebrook. We did the session last year. I don't know what is time. We did the session before, and people found it really super helpful. And some things have shifted, some things have changed, some things have been updated. So we thought that we would continue to hold live ones each time and answer any of the questions that you have. So if you have questions during this time or if things come up for you, please drop them in the comments or the chat with whatever platform you're looking at, and I should be able to see them. My plan is to get to them all. Um, and to be as clear as possible. A couple things to note. I am an alum of Hedgebrook. One of the reasons why I feel ideally suited to talk about this program in particular is because, like some of you, I applied many times before I got in myself. And so I very well know the frustration and the heartbreak that comes from not feeling like you were chosen, but I also do believe that there is some magic in when you do come. And so when I finally did make it, it was all the perfect reasons and times to be there for sure for me. So I want to encourage you to keep applying, keep applying, keep applying. Um, Another thing to note is that because we've done some realignment in how we adjudicate and how we schedule people, we have 2 to 4 week residencies now. They used to be quite a wide range of time frames. Now they're 2 to 4 weeks, and we have an arrival day and a departure day. Our arrival days are Thursdays, and our departure days are Tuesdays. What that means is actually we've been able to be a lot more regulated in our scheduling, and that means we can fit more of you in. So instead of having around 40 people who can come into residency every year, we're going to have closer to 80, which is a huge, huge place of growth, which I'm excited about. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in. I have some questions. I have one question coming in from Miriam right now. And then I have some that have come in through email, and I will share with you. So continue dropping those questions as you have them. Hello, my experience as a writer in TV, but I'm currently writing a novel in English. I would like to apply in the fiction genre since that's a project. Hmm. This is a great question, Miriam. So essentially, the question is I want to work on something different, but most of my writing samples or my great writing samples are in a genre that is not the one that I'm working on. This is one of the big changes and shifts that we've made. So you should apply in the genre that you have the strongest writing sample in, not the genre that you have the project in, unless your project is your strongest writing sample. You should be looking to apply in the genre in which you can show that you have the most skill in writing. So for you, Miriam, I would apply in screenwriting, and that would be the genre, the application portal you would enter through. And then in your artist statement and project description is where you could talk about this really awesome book that you're working on and how excited you are and why it is the most important thing for you to find time to write with. So apply in the genre that you have the strongest work in, the best experience in, where they can see, oh, yeah, this is somebody who's a solid writer. That's where you show that you're already a talented writer. And then in your project sample, you say, this is the thing I'm really excited about working on while here. Alex says, the application asks for an example of how you participated in an intimate creative community. Can you help me understand what kinds of facts about ourselves that question is looking for? Great question, Alec. So Hedgebrook is small. It's small. It's remote. It's 6 cottages in a small wooded area. So this question is really, have you been on retreat with people? Are you nice? Are you somebody who's going to have a lot of demands and a lot of needs of being around people? How does solitude work? This is a chance for us to get to know you a little bit better and see how you would fit into the community environment of Hedgebrook because it is so small. So these are some people want to get on residency and spend every moment that they can writing. Some people want to wander the woods and go for walks with friends and all of that. You're going to be in a creative bubble with these people. How do you handle that? What kind of things do you need? to make sure that you have a successful residency experience and you can be a wonderful colleague for people. Nicole has a question about the writing sample portion. Should the writing slash lyric samples correspond with the three audio samples? Yes. I'm looking at Britt. Yes. This is a new one, so we're still working out the details. Yes, the idea here is that it's the same sample that you're giving us, but it's a chance to hear it and it's a chance to read it. Because this is about the writing part of songwriting, the focus is not so much on like whether they performed it really, really well, so much as is it a really well written song. So yes, in brief, your writing sample, the writing lyric samples should correspond to the audio samples that you're submitting for your application. Stacy says, is it discouraged to use names of places, schools, or geographic locations in the interview questions? I don't know. Is it discouraged, Britt? That's kind of an interesting. If you think that it would be a way to easily identify you for some reason, that's the only reason you would be hesitant to put in the name of something, is if it would personally identify you, it'd be too close. But I don't see that would be a problem. Hold on, I'm taking. Oh, good. Britt agrees. Sandra says, "What is the process for alumni applications?" Oh, that's a great question, Sandra. I was like, "Wait a minute, Sandra, I know you. You are an alum already." We are no longer doing alum return stay applications. That is what we found is that there we would get several applications a year, and we'd only be able to welcome back two, maybe three alum per year. With our realignment, our alum are now our guest judges for our second and third round of applications. So, if you are eligible for a return stay, which means it's been more than 3 years since your residency at Hedgebrook, since your last stay at Hedgebrook, and you've already read for us, you've already been a reader for our applications. Those are the two requirements. Britt, I'm missing one. Am I not? You already read for Hedgebrook applications. It's been more than 10 years since your stay. I think that's it. Then you can apply to be a guest alum judge, which means that you would read applications in the final rounds, and then you would have a residency with your cohort. So, if you have not seen it yet, check your alum emails from us. We send out the link for how to engage, and it includes how to apply to be a guest alum judge. So that alum return stay application has been transmuted into the guest alum judge. And I would encourage you as an alum to take it as seriously as you did the alum return stay. It is read as an application. People apply. So if there are genres that you could read for as a guest alum judge, that's how you come back. Um, and Britt will let me know if I missed anything on that. So if I'm most experienced in poetry, and my project is creative nonfiction, I should apply with a poetry sample. Thanks for clarifying. Exactly, Catherine. Yes. If your best writing is in poetry, but you want to try something new in residency, that's super exciting. We want to hear about that in your artist statement. We want to read in your writing sample your strongest work. For listing publications, are we allowed to list published novel titles or novels slated to publish this year? Yeah, man. Why wouldn't you? I think the only time to be careful is if it has your name in it. If it's named after you, I would mark it as self-titled instead. Um, but that's the only thing to be careful with. Let's see, Britt. Titles, publisher, dates, just not their name. Exactly. So really, really, really do a scan to make sure your name is not in your application on your resume. One point, the file name when I downloaded my resume had my last name in it as part of the file name. Things like that is where a lot of people get caught up. Um, okay, so let's see. Julene, I have a bunch of questions and did watch the one you did last year regarding work sample. Do I put acknowledgments of publication on work sample with poem? Uh, um, do I put acknowledgments of publication on the work sample with a poem? I don't think that's necessary because it should be in your resume as one of your publications, but you can put it down like has appeared in blah 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 magazine or in blah 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 anthology. Do I add then the year the work was published? Does it matter when the poem was published? Is it better to use more recent poems? Is it okay to use only published work? Is a work description necessary if only poems are in the sample? If I've had work published in my new area of writing, would it be better to send a mixed sample with? Oh, it cut off. Okay. So, Julene, let me see if I can do this one by one. Okay. In your resume, I would imagine that you have a list of publications and awards, and these poems that you might be including that have been published would be recognized there. I wouldn't say it's essential to put it in the work sample where it was published and when it was published, but you can. That wouldn't be a problem as long as it doesn't refer to your name. Yes, when you're referring to an acknowledgement, you would say blah 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 magazine 2019 or whenever it came out for sure. So yes, you would add in the year it was published. Doesn't matter when. It doesn't matter when. I wouldn't say it matters when. I would say it is better to use more recent work if possible. You are one of the big things, big things that people look at in these applications. I have the hiccups. I'm so sorry, y'all. Um, let's see if it'll go away. Okay. One of the big things people look at in this application is the urgency of your project, the urgency of your writing. We want people. The judges are certainly most moved. The readers are certainly most moved by people whose projects have an urgency to them. And so, if you are talking about something that you've been working on for 15 years and it started getting published as individual poems 15 years ago, you need to talk about why it's becoming more and more urgent for this work to be in the world now. So I would say a balance. You're wanting to use your best work, and we don't need to know when it was published. If it's your best work and it was published 20 years ago, and it's still your best poem to represent you, then I would say don't put the year it was published and use it as your work sample. Is a work sample description necessary? So think of everything you have an option to add to your application as a piece that feeds the whole. So your work sample description isn't necessary if it's only poems in there, except you might say these represent a range of my work as I've been studying this or writing on this thing that has happened in life. It covers a span. It gives you the work sample description gives you context for the work samples. The only reason it's really important is so that the readers understand why they're looking at this group of poems and whether they talk to each other, whether they should be looking at the work sample as pieces of something bigger, of something pieces of something that's in progress, or just a wide span of your work. Let me check with Britt, see if I missed anything. The synopsis is not optional, she's saying. So in that time, I would say, why did you pick these pieces? Describe not only where they've been, who's published them, and when they got published, but like why are these your work sample? Tell us whether they're a part of a collection or they're individuals, whether you intend for them to be a part of a collection, whether they've already been a part of a collection. You can use a synopsis for a lot of things, but it helps give context that the poems do not. Think of it sort of like what they say about a cover letter. Your resume says all the things that you can do and where you've done them. Your cover letter sort of says the story behind doing those things. Um, if I've had work published in my new area of writing, would it be better to send a mixed sample? So, work published does not necessarily mean it's your best work. I would look for your best sample of work and apply in that genre. That's always the answer. Look for your best. If your most recent work is really exciting to you and you are really stoked at where it's going and people are showing a lot of interest, but it's still new to you, that's fine. Still apply in where you think your best sample of work is. You do not have to prove that you've been doing it for a long time. You have to prove that you've been doing it well. We want emerging and established writers. So if you're doing it well and you just started venturing into essays, but you've always been a songwriter and you people are really interested in the essays that you're writing, then yes, apply in creative nonfiction instead of songwriting. If you're like, well, I know for a fact that people love my songwriting because I'm established as a songwriter, then apply in songwriting and say you want to work on these really exciting essays that people are excited about. Do blog posts count as writing samples? Did you write it? Then it's your writing sample. Your writing sample does not have to be a published work. It does not have to be your writing sample does not have to be a published work. Um, Brit notes that you'll have to decide which genre that fits in, more than likely creative nonfiction, in that same genre of like essays, flash nonfiction kind of thing. But yes, if you wrote it, then it is a writing sample. Can you submit simultaneous applications for the Radical Retreat and the Writer in Residence? Yes, you can. Yes, you absolutely can. The Radical Craft Retreats are paid opportunities to become a better writer by learning from some of our amazing alumna. Our Writer in Residence program is separate from that, and they're not. One does not exclude from the other. For the Writer in Residence, can you submit screenplay and novel if you feel your skill is equal weight between genres? Hmm. Oh, you're saying, can you do like a split application, both screenplay and novel? No. Um, Britt, did we say no multiple applications? They can submit. Okay, so you can submit two apps. There's two costs. There's cost for each app. You can definitely submit one in screenwriting and one in novel fiction or nonfiction, whichever one. Um, but you would not want to try to do it um, as one application. And if you do ask for a fee waiver, you could only get one for one of the applications. Um, so I would say your writing sample that you're submitting is to show how great of a writer you are. The project that you want to work on here is one that you're excited about, that you feel is urgent to put into the world. It may not be what you work on, where nobody's going to come up to your cottage and be like, hey, are you working on that novel that you said you were going to be working on here? No, you can work on whatever you want to work on when you're in residency, but the one you want to talk about working on is the one that feels urgent, that you feel passionate about, that you feel is really important to have out in the world, and you want to tell the readers why you think that. If you want to work on a project for children, should you submit a sample of writing you've done for children, or pick what? Always pick your strongest sample for your writing sample. Always pick your strongest sample for your writing sample. What you want to work on goes in your artist statement. You say, I want to work on this project for children. It's awesome. It's going to change children's lives. They're going to be so much more wonderful and futuristic. Great. Tell us about it in your project. Your sample should be your strongest writing. Since I am unknown, you know, same, except you'd be surprised. Who knows who? Other question, references. How do people know if a person is good at being alone? um, how do you, well, how do I guess people don't know if you're good at being alone. You know if you're good at being alone. I would say that when you're talking about references, these are people like we've had some interesting asks. Can my spouse? I would not recommend your spouse be one of your personal references. I would think, have you ever gone on a vacation or a day trip with a group of friends? One of them would be a great person to speak to how you are in like a group dynamic when things happen in a group dynamic. Personal references and professional references, they won't necessarily know how you are good at being alone. But if you are somebody, if you are somebody who needs a lot of validation while you're in a creative space, you're going to need to know to set that up because more than likely you won't be able to receive that from your fellow residents. So, this is a chance for you to have other people speak toward how you would behave if you were given time by yourself in a cottage to write, um, how you would behave when you are gathering with fellow writers around the table. Um, Really, the references are not so much like, are they a real writer? Are they a, it's, are you a decent person? Are you going to make this experience hell for the people who are here with you? Um, are you going to freak out if you're given time alone? And those are things you might not know. People don't always know before they get here. And then they get here and they're like, oh, I'm going to freak out when I'm alone. Good to know. Um, I wouldn't worry so much about references. Pick some people, pick a friend who knows you and knows how you show up in community. When discussing why a project or the residency is important, is it acceptable to talk about mental health or past work experiences? Yeah, you can definitely talk about those things, um, especially if it's important to your project. Um, there's a question about disabilities and access that you might need, special access that you might need. Definitely, if there's any accommodations that need to be made. That's not something you're going to be judged on in your application, but we do want to know about it as soon as possible. Um, I think uh, that being real and authentic about why the residency is falling at a time that's important to you is a good thing. Um, if you are not chosen for the first wave of residencies, can your application roll over to the second wave? No, it cannot. In brief, there will be 2 cycles each year. The first cycle is for residencies that will be scheduled during that cycle time. So February through June of 2023 is going to be determined in this cycle one. July through no through really October, the very beginning of November of 2023 is going to be decided with cycle two. So it is not a rollover situation. Can we submit work that has already been published? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I don't know if it would be, I didn't know if it would be easily identifiable. Our first name's okay. First names on, no. Oh, Britt wanted me to let you know. Let's see who asked about this. Rolling over. Eileen. Britt wanted me to let you know that you do have the option of copying over your responses to a new app in Slideroom. So you could use some of those same responses or update them each application. Okay, easily identify. Our first name's okay. Miriam, avoid your name at all possible, if at all possible. If you're not sure, take your name out. Um, my name is Amber Flame. I wouldn't even if I have something that's talking about being a flame, I really consider whether I have something else because I don't want that to be a reason to be like it's an easy way to to sift through applications. Anybody who basically takes himself out of the running. So avoid your name. For professional references, as a songwriter applying, we don't have a boss or a recent teacher to ask. Co-writer or collaborator, yes. Your professional references are not your boss. This is not a job interview. This is a creative residency. Okay, so we're going to be asking them about your creative practice. You absolutely want to pick somebody you collaborate with, somebody you write with, somebody you're in a band with. They are your professional references. They know how you create. So we're not looking for somebody who is like your MFA English teacher. It's not that kind of reference letter. It's a much more conversational. Britt gets on the phone with them, chats with them about your creative process and your life in creative circles. That's really what it's about. Alec, don't apologize. All the questions, that's what we're here for. Let's see. I know that graduate students are welcome, but when you say does that extend to human? Listen, you're going to be read, your application is going to be read by a bunch of creative people. Are they going to want to read your humanities research writing? Are they going to be like, wow, this is the most interesting, exciting writing that I've ever seen? Maybe. I don't know what you researched, but I would encourage you to stick with your creative writing and your strongest work in your creative fields. Can you revisit that comment about the CV being scrubbed with the name of the applicant? This is, oh, Britt is saying, we're not trying to discourage nonfiction in any sense. No, I would say, especially not as your project description. Like if you are wanting to work on a nonfiction piece, then your humanities research writing might be ideally suited for that. I'm just saying, don't think like, oh, I spent all this time at school and I got this published in a journal. That must be my strongest writing. I would I would consider a more creative answer than that. Again, yes, Britt is saying what I've been saying. Your strongest writing sample. Think of people reading a bunch of these applications, and this writing sample is going to help them decide who gets a writing residency. So, what does that mean to you? What would that mean to you? CV being scrubbed of the name of the applicant. Yes. So, usually your resume will have your name and contact information at the top. This resume should not. Usually your file, if you upload a file, it will say like flame resume current or something like that. It should just say resume current. Go back through and make sure that if your name is mentioned in anything, if you have an organization that is, if you're self-employed, I have a production company that's A Flame Production. I would put self-titled production company, things like that, because they're just easy to. Brit is saying CV resume, if your name is anywhere on it, it will automatically be disqualified in round one. So, like I said, make sure your name isn't. I've had work published in my new area of writing. Would it be better to send a mixed sample with an essay and a few poems? In which section do I talk about writing a new genre of work? Thank you. Your writing sample should be the strongest sample you can. You're submitting in a genre. So you will have to pick whether you want this genre, whether you want do you want your application to be read by poets, or do you want it to be read by creative nonfiction folk? Is this an application for, because they're not going to see the writing necessarily from your project where you're doing something new. So you got to pick a genre. I would not send in a mixed sample. I would send a strong sample in one of the genres. And where you talk about the new genre of work that you're writing on is in your artist statement. If I've never had anything published or produced, should I not even bother applying? Oh, please apply, Miriam. You absolutely should apply. There's always, always, always a mix of emerging and established writers at the table. Um, I always laugh because I'm like, some of the people I know who got in on their first try were people who were never published, and I was like, "That's great. That's just great." So you are probably writing something that is really exciting. Like I said, your strongest work might not be your published work. If that is to you, how you know something is good is because somebody else has published it, then I would actually encourage you to have other metrics as well. Have a writing group or something that can help give you some perspective on when you're writing something really awesome, because the world's not always ready for it and you might not always submit it to the right place or the right home. So just because it hasn't been published does not mean it's not good. And just because it has been published does not mean it is good. So write the things that you're excited about, that you feel are really, really strong and that represent you the most. My strongest writing is a memoir. What do I do if my name appears in the writing sample and or reference to my family, which may I reveal my identity? hmm. Britt has an answer. Yay. Suggest they change their name to a pseudonym and they can mention that in their synopsis. I'm direct from Britt, who fields these questions from the readers as well as you all applying. So I would suggest that you scan and put in a pseudonym or placeholder name in this particular writing sample. It's what, 20 pages? So it's not, you don't have to change your whole book, but you do want to scan it for it. And not so much your family, like your family, your father's name or something like that. I don't see how that could exclude you, but if you are worried about it, then create a pseudonym. Any advice on possible things to touch on in the anything else you'd like us to know about you section? Is leaving it blank shooting myself in the foot? You know, I would say you should fill out any opportunity that you have to give them a clearer picture of yourself. You should. Anything else you'd like us to know about you could look like, um, I do extensive research projects in this in this area of humanities, or um, I spend a significant amount of time working on policy change for incarcerated folk, or um, I like working with. I've set up a youth mentorship program, or I volunteer with Big Brother Big Sister programs, or it could be anything. This is a chance for like I said, think of each part of the application as a piece of a whole. So this gives them a chance to see a whole picture of you. In that question, I know it feels like such a like, how do I answer this well question. Give it give it some thought of like, what have I not shared about myself that's kind of exciting or interesting? Um, this is also where you can put in some additional context where it could say, like that question about like why this residency, why now, work circumstances, mental health issues that have come up, um, family circumstances. You've been a caregiver for the last 2 years, anything around COVID, anything like that that isn't specifically addressed in any of the other questions. This gives the readers a chance to get to know the whole picture of you right now as you're applying. Oh, that's a good note. Thanks, Britt. That also helps the judges with a diversity question because the diversity question covers everything from like chronic and temporary disability to people of color to class status. There's so much in there, so it helps them get, like I said, a full picture of you as an applicant. I would fill it out, Cam. Always answer. And don't answer with I don't know how to answer this question. Just answer it as best as you can. I'm a bit confused about the resume. Would it be part of the work sample and therefore goes toward the page count? You upload it as a separate document. It is not part of your work sample. Hi there. I'm wondering about applying both fiction and nonfiction. Heather, yes, it is okay to submit to both fiction and nonfiction because of this. Oh, Britt wanted me to let you all know that resumes slash CVs are optional, so you do not even have to upload them, but they do not count toward your writing sample. You could submit two applications, Heather, to both fiction and nonfiction if you want a chance, and that's sort of a call that you're going to have to make. But you are more than welcome to apply to both genres. Application pieces read separately. It's a packet that goes to the readers. No, you do not need to list it. If it's on the creative resume, it doesn't need to be repeated specifically in the personal statement unless you want to draw more attention to that specific aspect of something. But yes, they will have the whole packet, your whole application packet. Ooh, for novel submissions, can the submission be non consecutive pages of one's in progress novel? I don't see why not. And that's why a synopsis would be important. That would be a perfect place for you to be like, okay, so you're coming in here, and then we're going to jump out and we're going to go here. You will definitely need a synopsis with that. Resume question. Should I include both writing, adjacent experience? Yes. It is your creative resume, but that is adjacent experience. What say you, Britt? Mm. Tara, I see your question. It's a good question. Um, Britt's leaving me hanging. What do you think? Do you think that they should put writing adjacent in their resume? Yes, we both agree. Yes, writing adjacent things. I think it shows you as a rounded. If I had newspaper experience, but I'm applying for songwriting or screenwriting or journalism, for that matter, showing that I have experience would be super super useful. Tara, equal voice. Okay, so we run into this question. There is a broader question happening on our organizational level about our mission and whether we are going to be strictly sticking to women identified folk that is inclusive of trans women and female identifying people. Um, we know that there are inequities in the literary field, in the publishing field for women. We know that the way that most women's lives are set up, they are often not given time to prioritize their writing. It is our mission to support them and amplify them in doing so. So, when we talk about equal voice, we are talking about what it would mean for women to have an equal voice in all conversations. That is a soft, fuzzy, gray answer that I can officially say. As for me, my priorities are slightly more pointed than the organizations, but we're getting there. But yes, female identified equal voices are the priority that that we amplify. So, could I put mixed genre? Y'all have got me running. I will just say that the last info session was not this fast and furious. Mixed genres in my work sample. Piece of my strongest work in an old genre. You could, you could, but remember it's going to be read by one genre. Frankly, many of our readers, many of our alum are cross genre, which is not surprising because so many of you are, right? Um, but just know that you are applying in a genre, and that's who will be reading it. Um, Mixed samples are fine. That's why a synopsis would become more and more important. I've applied 6 times in the past. I'm sorry. That's so frustrating. Never knowing where I went wrong. Shouldn't we at least be told which round we were rejected on to know what needs improvement? Mm, that is extremely frustrating, Loon Boom. I hear you. Um, Britt, I don't know. Do you know? Um, are people notified with what round they were um, eliminated in? We do let people know if they got beyond the first round. Um, and okay, so Britt says we let people know if they got beyond the first round. Um, this is always such a hard and complicated thing to answer. I don't know. Um, I don't know what you can do except keep trying. Um, in general, the notification doesn't state if the notification doesn't state you didn't make it beyond the first round. Um, yeah, it's so individual. It's such a interesting. I honestly don't know. I've gone back and looked at mine and been like, why this one and not that one? Um, we are not the ones who are making the decision, so we we don't we don't have a big enough operation going to be able to provide individual feedback, unfortunately. Um, but I will say that our residency doesn't get any bigger, and we get a lot of applications. Um, and we're trying to bring in as many writers as we can every year. And I would just encourage you to please keep applying. Lots and lots of people are very frustrated about that. Oh, okay. How do you handle translations, both the original and the English? But I feel that it loses a lot in translation. Would that be to my disadvantage? I would. So if you are writing in another language and you are providing a translation for the readers to, I would use the synopsis to explain like that this is a rough translation, and to give a little bit more context for what the piece is evoking that is maybe being lost in that translation. If I judge my best work is a sample of the novel I'm working on, but my experience is in screenwriting, then you should apply in the genre you have the strongest, best work sample in. It does not matter what your experience is, though generally if you have deep experience in one genre of writing, you probably are going to be confident that you have very strong work samples in that genre. But if you are working on a novel and that is the best work you've ever done, then apply with that novel in that genre. If you're a writer who is just starting out, can your professional reference be a peer? Yes, Laurie, in case you missed that, your professional reference should actually be somebody that you write that you're creative with. Um, if you don't have a mentor, editor, teacher in the writing world, then somebody you've taken classes with, not just classes from, could be a professional reference. Yes, Miriam, you can apply in two genres with two different samples. Do we need to aim to fill up the number of characters in the You do not need to try to fill up all the number of characters just to prove that you can write 50,000 or whatever it is characters. No. Um, I would say that if you can find somebody to read it to, that's always helpful because a lot of times you fill in blanks in your sentences that you may not realize that you're filling in. So making sure that it actually does give the full picture that you want it to give is really, really helpful. Um, you have that much space, so there should be no problem with them walking away with a full picture of you as a writer. Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead. Says there's can I include more than 3 songs worth of lyrics? Nicole, you should only use the lyrics of the 3 songs corresponding with the audio. You can put the Ella, you can put the name of the author you're translating. Keep the artist resume to no more than 2 pages. Nobody wants to scan through a bunch of resume pages. They'll get the point that you are well worked. Oh, that is a note. I'm sorry. If Ella, it says Britt said that we don't accept translations as your work sample. Um, so you can put the name of the author if that's part of what you're working on, what you want to work on while in residency, but it should not be your translation of their work. Can't be your writing sample. Thank you. Mental health and urgency go hand in hand with me, so I appreciate. Yes, please, please, please apply, Cindy. Yes, you can submit for cycle 1 and 2. Should we ask her? No, by the time in terms of anonymity, so personal and professional references are only contacted after you've already been selected. So only people who have been selected from round 3 will have their personal and professional references called. By then, we will not be working in anonymity because the judging part will be done. Sorry, not the selected, only in the final round. If you've made it to the final round, your references are checked it. And by then, we do it and we don't do it anonymously. The judging part has been done. Should we avoid referencing the main character name from our writing sample? No, not unless it's you. Referencing our mentor's name or professor's name who's teaching class we're enrolled in. No, I don't think you don't have to worry about referencing anybody but yourself. What are some other things that cause an application to be tossed slash denied right away? If they are an alum and they're applying in the new writer in residence, names, identifying things. Britt is dropping some hyperlinks. Anything else you can think of, Britt, drop it in there and I'll come back around to it. Can we give them a possible time frame when Hedgebrook might reach out? I'd hate to lose an opportunity because an email went to junk mail and they didn't see it. That's not going to your reference will not be a reason why you don't get in. Um, they will be contacted. Let's see, the cycle ends. Brit, approximate timeframes where references from cycle 1 would be contacted. Just to clarify, when we ask people to be our recommenders, you do not need to ask them to write a letter of recommendation. They will be getting a phone call. Um, okay, so reasons why your application might be thrown out. You included your name. You included a hyperlink to something. You didn't follow the writing sample instructions. Um, yeah, I think that's it. Um, too many pages in your sample. That's another one. Too few pages in your sample. Didn't give them enough to work on. Um, Lots of blanks. I would say people probably readers who somebody didn't take the time to answer most of the questions. That would be something that would be easy to eliminate somebody for. You do not have to, you can submit, you can apply as often as you want until you get in, and then there are rules. So please apply to multiple applications if you'd like. Specifically list boss, mentor, editor, teacher as examples of professional. Yes, that is a good point, Nikki. We can update that. Yeah, we want somebody who knows you as a writer. Can we apply to cycle one and cycle two? Yep. Submitting part of a short story as a writing sample for fiction. Both, Hannah. If we didn't get to read the whole story, then tell us a little bit about the story and then say, and it fits into the collection as a whole because blur to blur to blur. Yes, both. Are women of a certain age considered a diverse group? They are indeed. We love a range of ages. We've had people sitting at the table who were in their late 80s, early 90s, along with people who were in their very, very early 20s, and it was lovely. References will be only contacted if you are a finalist. That is correct, Stacy. Mixed samples are okay. I'm not sure, Ali Alimo 115. Okay. Apply in the genre you have the strongest writing sample in. If you're doing a mixed genre and you want to explain in the synopsis that it's a book of poetry, but it has prose pieces in it or something like that. Mixed samples are your writing sample is going to be read by the genre that you apply in. Some of our readers, many of our readers are multi-genre people. Some of them are not. So if you have a mixed genre sample, you're taking the risk that they might not get it. So you should apply it in the genre you have the strongest writing sample in. Different judges, different readers will be reading at different deadlines, Eden. Yes. So you can submit to with the same application, as Britt said, in Slideroom, you can copy over your answers from one application to the next. A regular blog reader, a witness to one's activities, I would not consider them a professional reference. This would be somebody who you write with, who is also a writer. Um, yeah, a professional reference. If possible, you should pick somebody who is not just an audience for your work, but a collaborator. Only an email is asked for, Jolene. An email will do. Yay for age ranges. Should an applicant be blatant and say, there is a place to mark whether you are a person with disabilities? There is also a place for you to give more context if you would like. Someone who knows you in a work or writing environment is what Britt says for your professional reference. So, yes, Christine, be blatant. References are going to be contacted probably around mid January. Um, it's about a month or so before the beginning of residencies. Residents are not allowed to bring their dogs unless they have to be there as um, I don't know if emotional support works as well as, Britt, can you answer on the dogs question, please? Notifications are expected to go out late January. Wait, hold on. Late January of next year for one starting in February? Or is that the second cycle? I'm sorry, I'm just having emotional support animals and physical emergency assistant dogs are welcome. Sorry, I was like, wait, Why are they finding out late January if they're going to start coming in February? Okay, so yes, 2 cycles makes things confusing. Late August is when notifications will be going out for cycle one, which is also shortly before that will be when professional references for those finalists will be contacted. A co-writer would be okay. As a professional reference, yes. Does a Hedgebrook alum carry more weight? Nobody's going to be like, wow, they have a Hedgebrook alum as their professional reference, so let's make sure they get in. But that's a good option for a professional reference. Would a writer's agent or editor be inappropriate? Sure, Jenny, that could work. Is the 315 deadline a receive by date or a postmark date? That is a good question. Actually, Britt wanted me to make sure you all knew. March 14th, 1 week from today. March 14th, 1 week from today is when the deadline for this application is. However, if you have started your application, you are in Sideroom and have started your application by March 14th, you have a 24-hour grace period. So you cannot start your application after March 14th, but you can finish it on March 15th. I wouldn't encourage you to do that. Emotional support animals, people should contact us once they are accepted to discuss. Cottages have ship's ladders and are not set up for animals, but we try to make accommodations. Along with any other accommodations you might need, that would be one that you would need to discuss when you are accepted. Between now and when we apply and when we learn the dates, our own schedule may have become committed. Can we shift the dates within the same year? As soon as you are selected, you will begin working with Britt on scheduling, and we work with you as much as possible to schedule you for what works for you in your first choices. We understand that things change after you apply, and in the time between applying and being accepted, we do our best to accommodate you. We do not have a wait list or a carryover or rollover situation because we have so many limited spots. But we will work with you within the year to get you scheduled for your residency. Whew. Yep. My strongest writing sample is in a defunct literary journal. It's okay. Retype all of it. Retype all of it. Do not do photocopy. Do not do a computer file hyperlink. Retype it and submit it. And it's totally fine that it's in a defunct thing. Oh, it's not the patience. I'm just like, y'all were coming fast and furious with the questions. And last time I was sitting here like, oh, what are some other things we could discuss? And today that's not how it went. Okay. So this will all be posted. If you can't remember what I said, I know I repeated myself multiple times, especially about the writing sample. Submit your best work. Figure out what genre is your best work and submit in that genre. And then come here and work on whatever is exciting and passionate for you. This will be posted on our YouTube channel along with our previous info session, which has so so many other things, other questions that were answered. Um, Britt wants me to remind you to not wait until the last minute to submit. There's only help available. We can only jump on the phone with you until 5 p.m. Pacific on March 14th. So get it in early so that if you have questions or concerns, we can hopefully help you out with that before it's due. Thank you all so much. I know I'm like slowly fading into the darkness here. So I'm going to go and turn on some lights. I hope you all have a wonderful evening and you know how to hit us up if you have other questions. Talk to y'all soon.